Welcome back to Eat Sleep Boxing Repeats YouTube channel. We are a week or so away now from Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn at the O2 live on DAZN, which is probably the biggest fight that's going to happen in the UK this year. I know we've had Fury White, but this is a massive fight, regardless of what you think of it, regardless of the different weight divisions. This is a big fight. Delighted as always to be joined by Greg and Paul. Gents, how are we doing?
All good, my friend. Thanks for having us.
Yes, all good. Looking forward to this one.
Looking forward to breaking it down. I feel like some people are absolutely buzzing about this one and can't wait. I think some people are less enthusiastic and don't see as much of a point of it. And you can argue about whether this is a right career move for Conor Benn, whether it's a right career move for Chris Eubank Jr. However, I think one thing you can't deny is this is a massive fight that will have a lot of eyes on it. And at the end of the day, fighters are there to get paid, and it's going to generate a lot of revenue for both fighters. Just want to get your general thoughts on what I've just said, guys. And are you excited for this fight? Do you think it should be happening? Just general thoughts on it. Greg, I'll go to you first.
Eliot, I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really good fight. I think I'm a big Chris Eubank Jr. fan. I've never had that. But at the end of the day, he's underachieved in his career. And Conor Benn's banging everyone out. What is there not to like about this fight? It's really, really exciting. Should it happen? Probably not, but it's interesting because Conor Benn gets to carry his power up and put more muscle on, and Chris Eubank Jr. gets to drain himself a little bit. So I'm all for it, mate. I have to be honest, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think we're going to touch on weight as well. What's Chris Eubank going to look like? A bit coming in a bit lighter, coming in at a weight. He says he's not been at that weight since he was 18 years old. He's just turned 33. So yeah, it's interesting to discuss that as well. Paul, do you agree with Greg? Are you excited for this one?
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with what Greg said there. I'm really excited for this fight. I for one actually tried to get a ticket for it, but I wasn't able to. It wasn't quick enough. But yeah, no, it's a really good fight. All of those implications of the weight and the mind games, everything we're going to talk about later, it just kind of made the fight more interesting. Obviously, the names, we don't even need to talk about that. Everyone knows about the history of their dads fighting each other. So yeah, I mean, definitely worthy of a pay-per-view event, and I'm for sure definitely excited for it and will be purchasing the pay-per-view.
Good stuff. Yeah, not long to go now. I mean, it's sold out the O2 incredibly quickly. That's not actually been done for a while. Obviously, we've had COVID, but when was the O2 last sold out for a boxing event? Yep, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Luke Campbell, Lomachenko, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you guys. Want to talk about mind games. Eubank's what's he been doing? Eating KFC. I think he's been eating other things on his Instagram story. What do you guys? It interests me in terms of, is he actually eating these things, or is he putting them in his mouth and spitting them out, or what's he actually doing? As we know, he is cutting weight for this one. But just generally, what do you guys find it funny? Do you guys find it a bit strange? What do you think of it? I'll go to you first, Paul.
Yeah, I find it quite amusing, to be honest. I'm loving all of Eubank's wee cameos on Instagram. His birthday, not missing out on the birthday cake, seeing the 60% put in chocolate sauce or whatever it was on the plate. Yeah, the KFC and everything. I love it, to be honest. Do I think it'll have a big effect in terms of, will it get the Conor Benn or anything? No, I don't think it is. But I'm all for a bit of mind games, and if Eubank Jr. thinks that doing all of this will make Conor Benn doubt himself, yeah, I'm all for it. I do enjoy it, and I think what you said there about is he actually eating the food? I mean, I don't think it really matters and as such, because I just think it is. I think it's good fun. I think it's adding to the fight. It's making it more interesting. Lots of people are talking about it. He puts those Instagram stories up or puts it on his Twitter. He's getting thousands of comments and likes and stuff. So yeah, I think it all adds to the hype of the fight, really.
Yeah, obviously, look, it's a pay-per-view fight. The more pay-per-views that are bought, the more money they make, right? So it makes sense as to why he's doing it. Do you think he's taking Conor Benn wholly seriously? Deep down, do you think he's trained? Do you think he really is not training as hard? He's not killing himself for this camp. Obviously, he mentioned abstaining from sexual activity for a certain amount of time in that gloves are off video. Do Is he taking Conor Benn seriously?
I think if he isn't taking Conor Benn seriously, he's got a huge problem, to be quite honest. I know you look at both fighters' resumes and who they've fought, and Benn's, still very much on the up, hasn't fought for a world title before. Eubank Jr.'s been there in the big fights, although he hasn't been successful in all of them. He's been there. There've been some close fights. But yeah, I think that if he's not training 100% and he's not taking Conor Benn seriously, I think he could have a huge problem come October 8th, because Conor Benn is definitely taking it super seriously. So if Eubank isn't, I don't think he's silly enough though to do that. I think this is just all part of the mind games. I think he will be 100% serious about this fight. He'll know that it's kind of like a family legacy, like his name's on the line. He doesn't want to tarnish the Eubank name. He wants to make it he wants to get another win over the Benns. So yeah, I think he definitely is taking it seriously, and I 100% will be training hard behind closed doors. I just think all of the 60%, the eating all of the junk food and stuff, I think that's just all part of the mind games and hyping the fight. But yeah, as I said, if he's not taking Conor Benn seriously, he could be in for a big shock.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Greg, what do you think? Do you think he is actually training very hard and taking this fight seriously, or do you think he's thinking to himself, Conor Benn's a welterweight, less experienced. I don't need to be at my best for this one.
Yeah, Eliot, I think he's got everybody in the palm of his hand. If you look at Chris Eubank Jr., he's got unreal genetics. He's never out of shape. A bit of chicken, right? Okay, it might have a bit of saturated fat on it. A couple of spoonfuls of birthday cake, and we're really going to get ourselves in a bit of a twist here about it. He is taking this seriously, but Chris Eubank Jr. is the type of fighter that he's so confident in himself that's where this arrogance comes from. I don't believe he's greatly looking down on Conor Benn. I think he just knows that if he comes in at his best, he believes in himself and thinks that he can win the fight fairly straightforward. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you respect your opponent, and he said that he does respect them, but there's just levels in the game. If you watch Chris Eubank Jr. also, I've been watching him for years, he trains like an absolute beast. I mean, I've not seen many fighters train harder than him, so I don't read too much into it. To answer your question, do I think he's respecting them? I think he's given them minimal respect, but yes, I think he is. And no, the eating thing, I don't look into too much to it.
No. I'll go straight back to you, Greg, in terms of asking about weight. It's fight at 157. I think I've got that right. So, Conor Benn's a welterweight at 147 pounds. Eubank fought at super middleweight, which is crazy to think he's done that, but he's been fighting at middleweight for the last couple of years at 160. So he's dropping 3 pounds. Conor Benn can move up to 10 pounds if he wants to. Greg, I'll go back to you. What do you think Eubank will look like at 157 pounds? Assuming he does come in at that weight, let us know if you think he is actually going to pay a fine and come a bit above it. But what do you think he's going to look like come weigh-in day?
I think it might be something people are slightly looking too much into. The reason being is because if you see a lot of fighters when they make weight, they'll come off them scales, they'll go over, and their coach has always got like a drink ready waiting for them. Chris Eubank Jr. never really does that. He'll have a wee sip of things. So for me, on this occasion, he's just going to be in that scenario that most other fighters need to be in, where he's going to need something waiting on him, because it is going to take a little bit away from him. 2-3 pounds. We've seen him come in. Was it last year? We've seen him come in at about 158, 159 for one of his fights.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you'll be able to do it. But the big thing for me, Eliot, is the rehydration clause. They've got to let the guy put a little bit of water back on, So that's more of a talking point for me than the weight.
Yeah. And what do you, taking the weight of hydration clause into account, do you think it will affect him on fight night? And how do you think it could affect him? Well,
they've not really disclosed the rehydration clause, have they? But if it's, say, for example, he can put on 10 pounds, I think that could affect him. I mean, Chris Eubank's the first guy to tell us he walks about 12 stone, but I don't know. I think it could affect him a little bit, but how much in the fight, I really don't know. I don't think 60%, but I think it could take a little bit of something away from him. But is that only fair if Conor Benn's putting on 10 pounds? So I suppose you've got to add these things up and work out what's fair's fair.
Absolutely. Paul, what are your thoughts? is that taking everything into account, obviously we might have different opinions come weigh-in day. It might be a weigh-in Eubank might look unhealthy or drained or whatever. We'll have to see in a couple of weeks. But what do you think Eubank's going to be like in the ring on fight night, coming in a bit lighter?
Yeah, I agree with Greg in the sense that I don't think it's this whole 60% thing that he's talking about. I don't really read much into that. I think that, his trainer, Ronnie Davis, has said before, right, Eubank making 160, it's not, obviously it's difficult to make weight, but he's very diligent in doing it. So I don't think the extra 3 pounds will be a huge issue. It's just what Greg said. It's more of the rehydration thing. We don't really know how much he actually is walking about at. So if he says he walks about at 12 stone, well, that is 168. So that's super middleweight. So that's saying then that he hasn't fought when he's fought at super middleweight. He hasn't really cut any weight at all. So yeah, no, I think it is more interesting, the rehydration clause aspect of it, because is he allowed to put on those 10 pounds? If he's allowed to put on 10 pounds, yes, there's still the aspect of he's going to be a little bit drained and depleted of his water weight. But if he's going to be on, if he's allowed to go up to 167, for example, in the rehydration weigh-in on fight day, I don't think it'll be a huge issue at all. He's still got the attributes over Conor Benn. He's still got the longer reach. He's taller. I'd probably, his punch output is a lot higher. But both of these lads as well, like you look at Chris Eubank Jr., there's not very many people that are, as Greg said earlier, he's always in shape. He's always super fit. Bet you if he went on his, one of his 2 or 3 month holidays to Dubai and came back to the gym, he could spar 12 rounds almost straight away. He's just one of those people. He's just one of those annoying men that's just constantly in shape. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, in terms of the rehydration clause, that I want to know a bit more about that. But it's all how he looks on the weigh-in day. As Greg said, yes, 3 extra pounds, but Eubank Jr. never really looks like he's struggling at 160. So an extra few pounds, yeah, you might see him weigh in and quickly go over for a big gulp of water and a protein shake and some electrolyte drinks or whatever it is. But again, completely agreeing with Greg in the sense that I think sometimes people get a little bit too caught up on this, and that it mightn't have as big an effect as people actually believe it will.
Yeah, no, good stuff. It's interesting to get your opinions on it. Some obviously people have had different opinions on this fight on a variety of factors. I think one thing for me is I quite like watching weigh-ins. I know that Greg does as well. I've never looked at a Eubank Jr. weigh-in and thought he looks a bit gaunt or looks like he struggled to make middleweight. So I don't think that dropping 3 pounds is going to be detrimental to his performance too much on the night. I just think that he is a middleweight. He's not a super welterweight, but as a one-off, dropping 3 pounds, I don't think it's absolutely going to kill him personally. But we'll see what happens at the weigh-in. Bit of a fun one now. Just want to talk about like the dads getting involved as well. As we all know, 2 dads fought quite a long time ago in 2 fights. Eubank Senior, won the first fight via stoppage, and the second fight was a draw. For anyone that doesn't know, I think we're being told that the 2 dads are getting involved in fight week activities. We don't know exactly what this is going to look like. I think Nigel Benn's in camp with Conor Benn. He's controlled from Australia. He's been with him for a few weeks now. Being told that Chris Eubank Senior is going to be in the corner for Chris Eubank Jr. for the first time in a long time. Don't know if that's 100% true. Again, that this could be mind games. We don't really know. But just your thoughts on, is it a good idea for the dads to get involved, or should they kind of be left out of it? And yeah, you just kind of, I want to get your guys' thoughts on, is it a good idea, if you consider what Chris Eubank Senior is like, is it a good idea for him to be back kind of in the picture with Eubank Jr.? I feel like we're not really aware of what part Roy Jones is going to play in this fight, what part Ronnie Davies is going to play in this fight. I don't know about you guys. You guys might be able to tell me something different, but it's all a bit confusing in terms of what Eubank's corner is actually going to look like man for man. Greg, well, yeah, let us know your thoughts.
Well, it's the Warriors count.
I'm joking. I think that I like the thought of them being involved. Whether they're going to be in the corners or not, I don't know how much I like that, because I think Chris Eubank, I think he needs someone that is going to read him the riot act and that he's going to really listen to. And it's not that I don't think he'll listen to his dad, but he's got a different relationship with his dad. My understanding is his corner will look like Chris Eubank Senior and Ronnie Davis. I don't think Roy Jones is going to be involved at all, is my understanding. I could be wrong. Fight week, Nigel Benn losing his temper, Chris Eubank trying to come across as the height of intellectual madness. I'm all for it. Send them on. Let them sit next to them at the press conference and have a bit of an argument. I like all that shit. So, yeah, but in terms of the corners, I would leave them out. I would leave them in the crowd.
Yeah, we'll see two massive characters in British boxing, and I think anything could happen. And I think it's going to be entertaining. At the same time, like remembering that it's in DAZN's, it's in Matchroom's favour to get them involved, because that's going to get more people excited, more people viewing figures in the therefore more people buying the pay-per-view. So I think we will see them at some point. Paul, do you want to see Chris Eubank Senior and Nigel Benn at the press conference at the weigh-in as well?
Oh yeah, press conference, get them up on the top table, get them throwing chairs at each other. No, I as you said there, you did hit the nail on the head. You know, if the dads are involved, it's only going to enhance the pay-per-views. It's only going to enhance the revenue and basically the money Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. make, because, you know, you'll get people who, you know, like my dad, for example, who doesn't watch a whole lot of boxing now, but did back in the day and would have watched both Eubank and Benn fights. So, you know, if they get involved, then it'll be like, oh, you get people like that who will be interested in the fight and will be buying the pay-per-view. So I think it would be silly not to get them involved. In terms of the corner, I don't see Nigel Benn obviously being in Conor's corner. I think every time he has been at a Conor Benn fight, it's been more, you know, front row, kind of on from ringside. Whereas with Eubank Senior, even if he is in the corner, I think that there's too much on the line for the Eubanks, in the sense that he won't want to say anything stupid. He'll let Ronnie Davis or whoever, if it does end up being Roy Jones, I think he'll let them do the talking. Well, he should do anyway. Let them do the talking. You know, they've been the one with Eubank for the past 8-10 weeks or whatever it has been training. So I think if Eubank Senior tried to come in on fight night in the corner, giving loads of instructions, trying to overrule the actual coach on the night, I think that would be daft. I think that would be silly. But then this is Eubank Senior we're talking about here, and he's a bag of rebels, isn't he?
Yeah, one thing I just want to get to the bottom of.
Can I make one important point, and only one thing that I'll say to support Eubank Senior, and it's a bit of a touchy subject. Chris Eubank Senior seen the damage that was been done to Nick Blackwell and told Eubank to go to the body. That's the only thing that I will say. He may be good in the corner for seeing and being able to read a fight, but in terms of everything else, I think it's a bit wild. But I think that's something that may be overlooked. That's something I go back and watch quite often, because he was sitting in the corner and he said, go to the body, don't stop going to the head. He knew there was something. So he's obviously, we take the piss, I take the piss, but he's a smart guy at the end of the day, you know, so I think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, he's a character. I think it's a good way of putting it. But yeah, one thing I just want to get to the bottom of that I'm not quite getting is that I agree. I think I agree with Greg. Roy Jones Jr. is not going to be here. Whether Roy Jones Jr. is going to be in Eubank's Jr. corner in his future fights, we don't know. But in terms of, do you guys think, or Greg, do you think that Eubank Sr. is actually going to be Eubank Jr.'s trainer for this fight? Because I don't, like Ronnie Davis is in the background, he'll be there, but he's not going to be like the trainer.
Yep.
Or could it be someone else maybe? What do you think Eubank Senior is actually going to be in the corner, coming in between rounds, being the main voice in the corner here? Having not kind of, if you consider Eubank Senior, he's not a trainer. He doesn't train fights. He's not been active in boxing for quite a long time now. What do you think is going to happen there?
I think he'll come in. I think he'll be doing all the talking in between rounds. I think he'll be the one that, if you look at it, see when it was Ronnie Davis in the corner with Chris Eubank Senior. Eubank Senior done all the talking. Ronnie Davis done bits and bobs here and there, but Eubank Senior was doing it, even strutting. You remember you seen the videos of run off and go back and speak to him? Like, oh my god! But Yeah, he's a showman. He'll be speaking to him in the corner. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that that's who will be doing all the talking. I get what you're saying, and I agree with Paul as well. He's not a trainer, but he was a fighter, and he can read a fight, and he's there to read the fight. When Eubank Junior was training before, Eubank Senior wasn't training him in the gym. He was just there on fight night. So it's just like taking a step back the way to old times, isn't it? Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, next question is going to be like directed to Paul. Greg, we know your prediction video. We'll see what you have to say then. It's going to be a separate video. Please do check it out if you watch it after this video has come out. Paul, it's just kind of like me asking you for your prediction, but also want if Conor Benn wins this fight, how does he win it? Can you make a case for Conor Benn winning? If you can't, then fair enough, but can you?
No, I think that I do see Eubank Jr. winning the fight, but I think you can still make a case for Conor Benn. I think you can, majority of fights, you can end up making a case. If you do enough research and look into it enough, that you could convince yourself that Conor Benn is going to win the fight. In terms of how he does that, he's going to have to hope that Eubank Jr. has underestimated him, that he actually is only 60% or less or whatever, his full potential on fight night. He's going to have to hope he has struggled at the weight. He's going to have to hope he hasn't taken him seriously and he has been eating these junk foods or whatever. So yeah, if we're all wrong and Eubank Jr. has been half-arsing this, that's how Conor Benn's going to win this fight. I don't want to take anything away from Conor Benn because he's been superb recently. He's arguably one of the most improved fighters in Britain in the last few years, along with the likes of Maxie Hughes and stuff and fighters like that. So I think, you got to give Conor Benn his credit. And he's got some balls for taking this fight as well. He doesn't need to. I can make a case for him winning, yeah, but it more than likely have to be he's fighting a Eubank who's not 100% and stops him late on because he's so drained of water weight. He hasn't been able to rehydrate properly. And then, yeah, just down the stretch, mid to late rounds, Ben potentially takes him out of there. That's the only way I could see him beating Eubank. I actually couldn't see it on points, to be quite honest.
And if I had to ask you for a prediction now, 2 weeks out, 2 weeks away from fight night, what would it be?
Going on doing a complete flip on what I've just said, I think this fight will end in stoppage.
Yeah.
I think Frank Jr. can win it on points if he just keeps him at range and keeps Ben at bay. But then, there's been times, I know it was a long time ago now, but Conor Benn got knocked down a good few times against Cedric Paynoud or whatever you call him. So 2 or 3 times in one fight. So, are there frailties to the chin of Conor Benn? We don't know. Could be. So, yeah, I think that even though Eubank Jr., even if he is a little bit weight trained, he's a naturally a lot bigger guy in height and stature and size. So I think that although he's not a concussive puncher, one-punch puncher, his combinations and I know I hate to go back to it because it was tough viewing, but the Nick Blackwell fight, just those combinations, those uppercuts, the concussive punching, not giving your opponent a minute. I think if Eubank Jr. is going to do that, he could potentially force a stoppage. Again, do I see it coming really early? It depends if Benz comes out all guns blazing and firing, then I could see Eubank Jr. clip him and get him out in the first half of the fight, but more likely in the middle. So yeah, if I was to give you just a one-off prediction for the fight, I would go with Eubank Jr. stoppage.
Good stuff. And yeah, we'll see what Greg has to say. So you can see he's dying to say something, but we'll see what Greg has to say soon. Last question, guys. What's going to happen after this fight? I'm going to say Paul thinks Eubank's going to win. I think Eubank's going to win. We'll wait to see what Greg has to say in his prediction video. Let's assume, wrongly so, but let's assume that Eubank does win. Let's just discuss what happens next. Greg, do you think Conor Benn, if he does lose, can go back and rebuild at welterweight? But is he going to be put down a couple of steps because it's going to be a rebuilding project? If that makes sense. Phil, if you consider there was talk of him fighting Keith Thurman, Adrian Broner, someone of that sort of level around this time of year instead. Is he going to have to wait, say, a year to get to that sort of level now, or do you think he's going to go straight back into a welterweight fight if he loses?
I think they'll make him wait, Eliot. I think he'll go back to the Chris Van Heerden level. if he... Now, that's not an insult because Chris Van Heerden wasn't a bad fighter. Conor Ben's just get the power out of ice most at 147, apart from maybe the Elite. So I can see him going back to that level if he wins, which, listen, I don't just say this for the sake of the mystery of a prediction video. I think he can win this fight. See if Eubank is really affected by this weight and he goes back in that straight line laughing at Conor Benn, I can see that. You remember the way Hasim Rahman knocked out Lennox Lewis when he was laughing at him? I don't count that out, but I see him going back to the Chris Van Heerdens and then maybe taking 2 fights and then, and with someone like Keith Thurman after that.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we will see what happens. Again, this is just all hypothetical. We'll have to see what happens on the night. Paul, where would you want to see Conor Benn go opponent-wise if he does lose on October the 8th?
Yeah, if Conor Benn is to lose, obviously I think it's fair to say this is kind of like a one-off. Me personally, I don't think he loses a whole lot. I don't think he has a whole lot to lose here. Apart from the whole Benn Eubank rivalry here, I don't think Conor Benn has a whole lot to lose in terms of his career and his progression, because it's not at welterweight. He's fighting someone who's already been has challenged for world titles at super middleweight and middleweight. He's held the IBO belt, however much value you give to that. So in terms of his career down at 147, if he loses, he lost to a bigger guy. He was never really expected to win. Not a lot of people thought he was going to win. He can go back down. Yeah, I agree with what Greg said. Maybe one fight on the the fringe world level, the European kind of type level, and then go in with a Thurman or I was going to say Sean Porter, because he's obviously still, but then Sean Porter's only ever lost to the elite of the elite. So yeah, I think that's a good fight for Conor Benn, and like Greg alluded to there, if he does win, and well, the world's his oyster. Everyone will want the Conor Benn payday. So you never know if he was to beat Eubank. Who's to say that he couldn't get a world title shot at 147 next?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think there are so many fights for him at 147, and fights there that he could definitely would be the favourite in. Would still be big fights. Just putting out there, I still think Conor Benn against Florian Marku is a big fight if you consider the support that both fighters have. Maybe Michael McKinson, possibly. These are fights now that are still big O2 fights, and so he could maybe still have big fights without dropping down level. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Final question from me, guys. If Eubank Jr. wins this fight, will we see him fight for a world title next? There's been talk of him maybe fighting Liam Smith early next year. Personally, that doesn't do a lot for me. Whereas, as we know, at middleweight, there's some fantastic middleweight world champions at the moment, with obviously Golovkin still being one of them. Well, their indications are that Golovkin's not going to retire. Greg, do you think there's any chance we could see Eubank Jr. against Golovkin next?
I do. I think if you look at, and this is no discredit to Golovkin, he's been beat by Canelo. He's going to go back to middleweight, and if he doesn't, he vacates the belts. But say he does go back, who else is he really going to fight that's going to generate a lot of money in middleweight? Bring him over here, bring him to the O2, bring him to a stadium, and it's selling it out. So I think that fight's more possible than ever. I would not count it out, and it's a fight I would love. Oh man, just so excited! I've wanted that fight since he fought Kilbrook. I really have.
Yeah, but 6 years ago. Yeah.
The old Eubank needs to come back though, not the tippy-tappy back foot guy, the guy who walks forward throwing combinations. Can you imagine for 6 rounds? Oh.
I hope so. It's a frustrating one because it's one of these fights we've been talking about for such a long time. And Golovkin, he might not be retiring, but he's not got a long time left. So if that fight is ever going to happen, it does have to happen. It does have to happen next. And I feel like the timing could be right, considering they're both fighting. Golovkin's just lost to Canelo. Eubank's about to fight Conor Benn. Why can't that fight happen February, March time? And I feel like there are other middleweight world champions there, other top class middleweights, but surely that is the fight we will see. Paul, just come over to you. Can you see that fight happening?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny Greg said there, that's 6 years ago now. Still feels like yesterday when all the talk was it was going to be Eubank versus Golovkin. Then all of a sudden, it was announced that Kell Brook was fighting Golovkin instead. And yeah, I do love that fight, and I couldn't agree more with Greg. Like, it makes a lot of sense. I personally would want Golovkin to retire now, but it just doesn't seem like he's going to do that. So the Eubank Golovkin fight, it is a mammoth fight. It is a mammoth fight. I don't think I'd want to see Eubank Jr. in with a Charlo or anything. I'd rather him just fight someone like Golovkin, or if the belts, say Golovkin does retire and the belts do become fragmented, yeah, he can. I do think he could win a world title against the right opponent.
Cool, exciting. Well, yeah, that's a talk for another day. We'll have to see. Yes, obviously beat Conor Benn first. Gents, but yeah, been a pleasure as always. Been really in depth. There's so much to cover on this fight, whether it's the weight, Eubank Senior, Nigel Benn, what happens next. There's been so much to cover. I feel like we've done most of it. Thank you for your time as always. Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, DAZN pay-per-view, Saturday, October the 8th at the O2. Thank you very much.